All right, everybody, on to the next tank for only fins. So this tank right here that we're sitting in front of, this is our largest tank in the whole house. This tank is a 150-gallon Aquarium Masters, and it is a narrow tank, and it is a 30-inch tall tank. So it doesn't take up a very wide area, but it is tall. So it's a 30-inch tall tank, one of the tall tanks. Really nice. This is, like I said, the biggest tank that we have here in the house. This tank originally started out as what we called Asia. Now, a few months ago, there's tons of plants in here from Asia, stem plants, and it was primarily only Asian fish. And then slowly, as some things died off or whatever, things changed, I've put some Sevrums and South American stuff, once again, because they're my favorite, into this tank, getting ready for them to become into their bigger home eventually. Because, you know, sometimes with certain fish, it's hard when the fish store gets them in, that you have to kind of get them right then and there, or else they may not come back around again for months at a time. There are several fish in this tank where we've had to probably wait 2, 3, 4 months for them to arrive, and when they come, they come. You don't really have the option to say no anymore. So this tank, like I said, originally started out as Asia, and this tank was primarily built for eels. There is a fire eel. He's about 24 inches long. His name is Hades. He's in this tube over here. He's hiding because they're nocturnal. And then I have a xanthic unicolor over here. He's in this log right here. And I'll post some pictures of what the tank originally looked like. The original tank had all these bamboo, which is real bamboo. Got it from a friend up in Oregon. But this bamboo was originally in here. There were 6 logs sticking up. And then we had, like I said, some stem plants and stuff. But once again, just like in the 75-gallon tank over there, the addition of those Sevrums right there, those 4 red spots, red-spotted Sevrums, they just went to town, little lawnmowers, and destroyed every plant in there. And so eventually there was just, you know, there was no leaves or anything on the plants, so I gave up and just ripped them out. And I'm actually okay with it. I think it looks nice. The real bamboo, surprisingly, does not like water. In fact, I had 6 logs originally in this tank that were vertical, looked real cool. Like I said, I'll post some pictures. And then they started bursting. They ripped open at the seams and they burst. And so that didn't look very good, and, you know, it was tipping over and stuff, so I got rid of them. And now it is what it is. And another interesting thing I'll talk about probably in a later video with this tank, but one of the things I've learned in doing fish is I tried originally with this tank, this was going to be our display pretty tank, right? And I had, I think, 6 different kinds of sand, substrate, rock, whatever. I mean, I had the base substrate level so the plants could grow. I then capped it with Bora white sand from UNS. And then I had, you know, 4 or 5 other different flavors of rocks and looks and whatever. And as you can see along the bottom, it's all just been mixed together and redistributed. And part of that is for 2 reasons. One is the eel. Eels burrow. And so they like to go and start digging and stuff, and that makes it really hard because then you're not going to keep the same look. So one of the things I've learned over fish keeping is, you know, just stick with a substrate or a sand. Just put 1 in there and be done. Don't worry about it just looking extremely pretty all the time unless you plan on just meticulously moving it, because you have to remember it's their home, not yours, right? And, you know, the second thing I learned with this tank is exactly that point, is like, it's their home, not yours. You're not going to be able to keep it perfect. It's not going to look the way you want. They will move it one way or the other. They will destroy things. They will find a way to move sand. The tank upstairs, which we did an earlier video for, that one has a giant mound after a day of me reflattening the sand out again because they just move stuff. So anyway, so this tank, like I said, was Asia. And I have a love-hate relationship with Asia because I really like the fire eel. I like the xanthic unicolor. And these right here are my favorite. These are Denison barbs. And since I started in this hobby, Denison barbs were going to be something I always had and had a bunch of. But you have to have them in a fairly large tank because they're continuously swimming when the light's on. Now at night they do hide, but during the day they continuously swim. And you need enough of them so that they group together. And when we start doing some of our species profile, we'll talk about why I don't think barbs are fully... Like, I think they get a bad rap. Everybody's like, oh, they're mean and aggressive. Like, you read about tiger barbs or any kind of barbs, and they're like, oh, they'll go after everybody. No, they don't. I think you just have to keep them in big enough schools that you know, that they're fine, because I have all the barbs and even some Siamese algae eaters, which looks really cool with the barbs because they have the same body style, shape, and just a slight different color. That black stripe through them, which is really cool. But they're like a schooling or shoaling fish, and so the more of them you have, they just clump together and they're fine, and they really don't go after anybody. But these denison barbs, these by far are my favorite. So, you know, to have some denison barbs. We have some gouramis in here. We have pearl gouramis and blue gouramis and some opaline gouramis. I have a really hard time with gouramis because every single time I buy a gourami, within 4 or 5 months, they're dead. Like, they're probably just overbred for pet stores and stuff, and they just never make it. I can get pearls to go the longest. I have one blue that somehow made it, but other than that, I cannot get gouramis. The little neon dwarf gouramis or any other type of flavor of gourami, just not even worth it anymore. I do have 3 unique gouramis in here. These are pike gouramis. I'll try to get a better video of them. Every time I try to get up close to them, though, they hide. But these are pike gouramis. Look like little pencils sitting inside there, and just they hover in one spot real cool. We just got those recently. They were rare find, not very common to the fish stores. And they really don't do very much. They just sit and hover. Kind of cool. We also have a catfish in here. There's a Pictus catfish down here at the bottom. I'll try to get another good video of him. His name is Lucifer. He originally is one of the 4 fish in the whole house from years ago. Probably one of the oldest fish that we have that came from Petco. Actually, way back when. I'll post a picture. He was like real tiny when we first got him. Let's see what else we got in here. I have a datnoid now. We did get a datnoid. And I have 2 upside down African catfish that swim upside down. I just got these the other day. These are Geophagus calcatas I'm going to grow out for South America. I do have I think he's a king tiger or something, pleco. He just likes to hide out in here. He rarely comes out. I have a Chinese algae eater. And then what else is Asia? Oh, these are really cool up here. These are archers. I have 12 archers. And these guys spit. They're the ones that spit up at the bugs and stuff. Like I said, we'll do more on species profiles and stuff when we talk about each fish. But I have some archers up here. And I have trained some of them to spit, but they only do it when I drain the water and then they spit on the glass. But because the water level is so high, they don't really spit. But they do go after, you know, big clumps of food. They have gigantic mouths. Really just super cool fish. I was not in love with them when we first got them. Thought, oh, they kind of look kind of dumb. But then they've colored up. They get this black and silver, and then they get green tails, which I'll try to really carefully get a video of. It's really hard. But like the biggest ones in here, they have an almost lime green tail or back of their body, and it's just super cool how they've filled out. So they're in there. And then, like I said, I have some gold severums. The 2 littler ones I got originally because they were super tiny, and I was going to grow them out, and they've actually gone through a growth spurt recently. Gotten a little bit bigger here. But yeah, so some of these fish, you know, just moving some tanks around and stuff, this was because it's so big, you can kind of throw everything in and just let them sit there for a little bit, and then we'll move them back out. But this is definitely our biggest tank. Eventually, the plan, like I said, is bigger tanks for everybody, right? And where we're sitting in the hallway, I can fit 2 225s, and I'm going to do Asia and then South America. And then I was planning on doing an Africa 225, but recently that has changed. We'll talk about that on the next tank that we're going to display. But as of right now, the plan is to make Asia bigger and really just to have more fish from Asia. I'll get rid of all the South American stuff in here, you know, excluding maybe a few just to keep things clean. But I do have a little tiger Oscar over here that we just got the other day. And everybody doesn't, you know, not everybody loves Oscars, but I had to get him because just he's got this deep black and red coloring, just such a cool pattern on him that I had to get him. So I got that one. I've got some rotkeels. Got 4 rotkeels or red shoulder severums in here. And once again, they started out really tiny. So one of the things that I do with my fish to cheat, and what I mean by cheating is you always hear, oh, don't overstock your tanks, or, oh, they're, you know, huge fish in this little tiny tank. One of the things that I do, instead of buying gigantic fish, like these calcatas down here are, you know, this big. Buy fish small, and you can put them in a smaller tank and grow them up. And some of these fish will take, you know, years to months to get to full size. I mean, these barbs, when they came in, I have a few now that are getting nice, fat, and round like they're supposed to. But when these barbs first came in, I mean, they were little. You know, and these guys have taken about a year just to even get to this size, and they're still not done growing. Archer, same thing. I have a few smaller archers in here, like small archers, but most of my archers have started to grow and become, you know, fairly large. I think I have one that's at full size. It's the guy over here, right here in the corner. I don't know if you can see him. He might come across the glass right there, right there. That guy is probably the full size one. There's two in there that are about his size, but he's definitely the biggest one. You know, once again, so buy smaller fish. And there's two reasons for that. Like I said, like you can load up the tank, that's number one, but the other reason is cost. If you buy these guys full size, like the Denison barbs, you know, they can fetch, you know, 20, 30 bucks for one barb. But if you buy them small, they go for like $12 a barb, right? You just have to grow them up. The really, I'll say, crappy part about buying smaller fish is that you don't know what they're going to look like when they get older, or if they're even going to make it, right? I've got a few times, more than once. Like, I think we originally started out with 30 of these Denison barbs, and I'm probably down to 20. Fish don't make it, right? That happens, right? So when you buy smaller fish, you're kind of gambling on, you know, is he going to make it or not? But what's easier, swallowing a $10 fish and going, oh, I'll go get another one, or swallowing a $45 fish, and then, you know, you're out $45, right? Just because he was full size. So, you know, my secret to what I do with a lot of my tanks, similar to what I said in the Green Terror tank behind me, South America tank, is buy them small and grow them up. And that allows you, you know, to really kind of put a lot of different things in, let them learn behaviors as they get bigger. I mean, that datnoid in there, by the way, his name is Frank. My wife named him Frank. You know, datnoids are monster fish, right? That datnoid's going to get this big. He's this big right now. So how long do I get to have him? Probably a year or two, and then, you know, I'll trade him into the fish store and go get another smaller one, and, you know, keep growing them up, right? And some fish you can trade in for more money, which is great. That's awesome. Not the premise of what I'm doing it for. I just like growing them up. Now, one of the guys at the fish store, he has the reverse problem. He's too impatient to grow them up. He has to have them full size right now. Like, he has to have them full size. And so, you know, just to each their own. It's whatever you're willing to pay for. But I like starting with them small and growing them up because I like the rod keel over here that we have, the red shoulder. When we got them, they weren't the best looking. They were okay. But now I've got one that's just, he's getting the beautiful blue on his face. He's got the red starting to come in. You know, he's got these gorgeous stripes on him. You know, and his brothers and sisters are following suit. But he's definitely just, you know, full fins, full tail. Looks really cool. And I get a lot more happiness out of, I did that, right? Rather than just cheating and going and getting one giant one already from the fish store. The other thing with older fish is that when you get an older fish, you don't know how long or how old it is potentially, right? Unless that person's had that fish their entire life and they can tell you. But when you go to the fish store, you know, the fish store probably doesn't know. They got it traded in, or they bought it from a supplier somewhere around the world, whatever. They don't know how old that fish is, right? So barbs, I think the internet says 3 to 5 years, max of 8. Well, what if you got the fish, it took them a year to get this big, that's already 1 year gone, or a year and a half, or 2 years, or whatever. You know, you've got less and less time with them, right? And that's why I really don't like going and getting certain types of fish that are already, you know, full-size giant fish, because if they only have a lifespan of like 6 years, and he's already that big, who knows how much time he's got left. Like, you go buy a $250 fish, and he's huge, and he looks great, and you get 6 months with him, and he dies because he's old, right? Like, you don't know. We don't know how old they are. I mean, plecos tend to live a little bit longer. There are some plecos that live really long. So that, you know, maybe a little bit easier of a gamble there. But most of these guys don't live forever, right? Like, fish have a shorter lifespan than we do. And so that's why I like the smaller fish, is I get a lot more time with them rather than just, oh, I bought a big fish and he might die tomorrow. But so yeah, so this is Asia. Once again, it's a 150-gallon tall, 30-gallon tall tank, narrower fit. We'll do, you know, reviews of all the equipment and stuff we have. Both tanks behind me, though, as you can see, these are lit by UNS Titan lights. And then I have, it's sitting on a Gladiator workbench, actually, that I've reinforced in the middle here with another stand. So that's what it's sitting on. This table's capable of 3,000 pounds of weight dispersed. So I've got it fairly evenly dispersed across it. But yeah, this is And this started mostly because my wife just absolutely had to have a fire eel. That was the one thing she wanted when we did this. And when we got the fire eel, you know, he was, once again, very small, tiny eel. And now he's, you know, almost the length of this tank here. And that's kind of how I measure, that's kind of how I know how tall he is or how long he is, because when he goes from full top to here, you know, he's about the length of the tank. So he's, you know, between 24 and probably 25 inches right now. But yeah, just a really cool tank. Another one of our fun tanks in the house. We'll just have to keep going.